Welcome to This Week in Pulling, the show that brings you all the action from the world of tractor and truck pulling. I'm Dan Mayer, joined by Jeremy and Miles Krieger, and each week we'll dive into the latest highlights, breaking news, and behind-the-scenes stories from the sport we all love. From upcoming events, standout performances, and the rich history that shaped pulling into what it is today, we've got you covered. So buckle up, This Week in Pulling starts now. Welcome back, episode number 32, This Week in Pulling. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Hi, Dan. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, evening. Happy to be with you for another week of This Week in Pulling.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back this week. I had a little hiatus, and if you go back to 2 weeks ago, I had some technology issues where the phone got too hot and turned off on me in the middle of our call. So last week I was at the beach with my family and enjoyed some awesome time away. It was just amazing to be away for a little while. So sorry I missed the call, but went back and kind of watched the discussion and feel like we're ready to trend and move forward with number 32.
Well, I think, Miles, we need to update you and we need to kind of bring you into the fold. Maybe with or maybe without your blessing, we have decided that we are going to promote a super modified four-wheel drive shootout with long wheelbase machines at some pull yet to be determined next
I
summer.
definitely got that vibe
somewhere.
watching the show. you definitely sent that message. So whether it was for me or whoever, my goodness, if you have a stretched 4x4, you better get in touch with Dan or Jeremy and do it now.
That's
because,
right. You want to be a part of history.
Hot to trot.
This is going to be big time. Yes.
Well, and I happened to notice on some of the pulling sales sites, there may be a long wheelbase one for sale out there, rolling, no motor, but there might be one. So if you want to buy one, put an engine in it, and come pulling next summer, you should do that. That would be good. And I also got some clarification, Dano, on the Orange Blossom Special. From what I
understand,
there was a clause that in the first sale from the Gaines estate, there was live breaking news.
You like that? That was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool. There was an original no performance clause.
Okay.
In that in the original sale. However, it has since been sold again, and that is no longer prevalent. But the engine combination that this vehicle has in it now is now a 572, and it is way bigger than 500, so it does not qualify.
Oh, okay. But we can still get it out there and it can make a pass.
As I understand it, that could be a exhibition possibility.
That would be awesome. Cool. That's really cool. Well, thanks for the info. Boy, that is breaking news. That is breaking news there. Wow.
But anyway, Miles, that sort of just happened while you weren't here. It just kind of took off and has a mind of its own right now. So hopefully that happens, but we're going to try to make it happen. We feel like the long wheelbasers deserve a little bit of love, and if we can, we'll try to give them some next summer.
I got that vibe. There's no doubt.
So, guys, the breaking news this past week was the addition of the 4-1 Limited Pros to NTPA Grand National competition. Let's throw that around for a little bit. Let's have some discussion about it.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a long time coming. I think a lot of people are a little sore or sour because I think a lot of people wanted the light pros or another rendition of, or maybe 5.0s in there. But I don't know. I think it's good. There are plenty of them. They're plentiful across the regions, and I think they'll be fine. I think it'll be good. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't think it so here's kind of my 2 cents on it. A lot of the events that we're already going to are running 4-1 Limited Pro. Now they're going to offer them a points opportunity. Numbers will increase some. And at the end of the day, I don't think it really changes as much other than they have a devoted schedule. I've read some stuff on the social media and on the message boards in a couple layers. I think the first one that's probably need to be clarified is I don't think this affects Superfarm from any sort of aspect of what I've seen, other than a promoter does have the choice to book the classes that they want if the dates are available with the NTPA. So I do believe that Ned and all of the folks that be with the NTPA are going to try to covet and protect their classes. They're not going to let one run 25 times. And you know, they're going to keep the numbers down as best they can. And so because of that, I think there will be some discussion on which events can and cannot have certain classes with that 4-1. But I don't think it will change any of those very loyal events that are very, very excited about Super Farm. And the next section of that sort of question is does this mean Grand National opportunity for them at BG, or a Grand National opportunity for them at Toma, and so on and so forth, when ultimately they've already been hooking at Toma, but more from the regional perspective. So, you know, I get excited about a lot of those sorts of things. I think there's a lot of opportunities that will come and be present for us to get to enjoy in the sport. And I don't see anything wrong with adding classes and giving them more opportunities. And I think, you know, as long as it's all portrayed there and out front, there's a lot of really, really good 4-1 limited pro tractors out there and a lot of really good drivers. I don't think one of the things I also read is that this was adversely going to affect state and regional competitors. And I don't think it does, because I think some of the regional events probably may end up having Grand National classes. I could be wrong, but I think that's one of the ways they kind of switch that, is for some of these regional events, they may actually host a 4-1 limited pro Grand National class. I could be wrong, Dan. You may already know more about that, but for
Well,
me, I think there's a lot there.
Okay, so I'm going to muddy the water a little bit. Let's just say, okay, so now you've got 14 Grand National classes. Somebody's going to be a loser somewhere, you know, as far as hooks go. I mean, you know, everybody's kind of talking, well, you know, Super Farms last year only had 8 hooks. Are you going to see that go down this year? You know, I mean, with bringing the limited pros in, what do you guys feel as far as, okay, so now you got 14 classes, and like you said, you got to make room for all those classes. But now, you know, you talk about, okay, Rockwell, Toma, you know, going up to a Grand National class, but you're talking, you know, more scoots. We're talking more money to pay for a Grand National class, where an event has kind of like their budget kind of deal. How do you guys see that happening?
I don't know. I guess I feel like they take one out and bring one in.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I don't feel like you see them both at the same places. I feel like they both get the same amount of hooks. They may just be worked around into where they're going and where they, you know, as opposed to where they usually go. You may see some here that aren't here this time. Just my take. You know, I'd love to see them all just kind of follow into, you know, the big Grand Nationals and Super Grands, but I don't know. I feel like they, you know, they kind of, there's a smattering here and there, and they work them in, especially since this is the first year for the 4-1s coming in. I feel like they'll sort of ease them into it, and you know, they may not replace the Super Farms here or there. But again, I don't know. I haven't seen it, but that's what I feel like. What do you guys think?
Well, here's kind of the way I would draw it, I guess. You know, Dan, tell me if I'm wrong, but Fort Recovery's running them on a regional circuit right now.
And I do believe NTPA was the only, or excuse me, Fort Recovery was the only Region 2 event. Now, we talk limited pros, they're huge in, you know, Region 3, they're huge Missouri area, but out where we are, you know, Ohio, Indiana, you don't see a lot of limited pros. You know, so there's, you know, and so you're looking at, you know, a class that, okay, you know, you've got, you know, 15, 16 that are going to run for Grand National points, but are they going to run, you know, the Eastern events where, you know, are they going to more be settled in on the, you know, Region 3 or Western style events? You know, I'm just
right
curious.
right off the bat, you know, I think about a gentleman who has kind of carried the banner in some instances for the class over the years, these last 3 or 4 years, and that would be Dean Halicki.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dean, right off the bat, is a guy who makes this an opportunity to go Grand National pulling again, and I think he embraces that. He's been somebody who over the years has just gone and ran wherever he can and when he can, and has represented the class awesome. I think the Balsmas and folks like that have also been amazing adapters to it. They're Nebraska Bush, their PPL Western, their
Wherever, right?
PPL, whatever it is. But it's gonna change some things, and it's gonna draw some numbers away from others, because there are only X amount of tractors to run. But I think like when we've had it as the regional class at Fort, we've had 15 to 20 there, and if that's really the number that you strive to have, that's a pretty darn good number in my opinion. Um, so I think in Indiana and in Kentucky and in Illinois and those types of places, you may not find as many, but you can circle some pretty darn good tractors in Illinois right now as well that might be just ready to go. I mean, I think of a blue one that might just be might just be one of the very best in the country. So it's going to draw some questions. It's going to raise some questions, and it may adversely affect state numbers in some instances. It may adversely affect how things work. But I would say I think a fair idea is that they may have somewhere between 8 and 12 hooks. And I could be wrong, but the next sort of aspect to that is, and one of the things I read on the message board, which I did agree with wholeheartedly, is if on an off weekend they fall on Bowling Green and they can come, where are you going to park 40 more haulers?
Exactly.
Exactly. Like I think that is I've been able to get to know my call over the years up there, and that is a major undertaking and a daunting task, and not something that is ever taken lightly, especially because so many people covet their own space and they want to go back to where they were. When you try to find cramming those things in like sardines to find extra space, it's going to ruffle some feathers right off the bat, and there's not enough room. Now you go back to about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. I'm pretty sure that we parked across the street there at the church lot on the blacktop.
Yep. Well, and then
right off of Poe
at the blue shirts, compound too.
And so maybe that gains you an opportunity in some instances, but that's another sort of, we'll say, logistical discussion that occurs that makes you wonder, okay, if they're going to add that class, then what are they going to do? But one of my understandings initially was a Super National originally was going to host all those classes.
Right.
But Toma has traditionally not hosted all. They've hosted a regional super farm. They've had light pro and they've had limited pro. And then the rest of the classes have been kind of at that Grand National level. So I am anxious to see what this means. I think it's potential that they're there at Toma. I think it's potential they're at Bowling Green. I think it's potential they're at Rockwell. I think it makes perfect sense that they would go back to Fort Recovery if you were hosting them as a regional class. It seems like that would be a no-brainer to have them as a national level class. And then somewhere along the lines, I think you pick up another 1 or 2 events that give you that chance. I mean, obviously, from what I've understood and kind of from what I know, I think, there's got to be some outward movement as well for the NTPA's footprint to go westerly, and maybe that's a Missouri hook, or maybe that's a Kansas hook. They did have a Kansas hook there just a couple years ago out there at the Speedway when they were going out there for a couple of years. But going back and having more of a presence on the western side of the river might definitely entice that, and maybe it's these folks that have the tie with the 4-1 that already have 4-1 pullers that are putting events on. Maybe they're going to be the way that they get themselves a footprint with the NTPA out there.
Well, and if Brandenburg and Chapel Hill are on top of one another this year, which is what I'm hearing to be the case, then perhaps they come there. If pro stocks have to go south, you got to bring something in with the light supers and the 2-wheelers.
I don't envy that situation at all. But I also understand, like, you kind of have to. One of the things I think pulling in general has been really, really bad at is just being complacent. and allowing ourselves to just continue to settle with the exact same product and bring it the same year every year with the same pullers and the same product.
Sure.
And yes, we might go faster, and Vaughn might build a newer sled that allows us to do some really cool things with it. But at the end of the day, it's the same driver driving the same tractor going down the track at the same place. And
Sure.
we got to have a little bit of difference. How do we do that? Well, maybe this is the way. Infuse a little bit new energy, bring a new class in, and maybe change some of that synergy that's occurring in that event. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not a promoter. I'm an announcer that's luckily enough to be hired occasionally to go do an event. But as a contract person, I can tell you that if I were to go to a new event or to a class or place I had been and have some new classes, it would generate some more enthusiasm for me as the announcer.
That's fair. Yeah, I agree. And it would give you more storylines because this is something brand new that you can build off of.
Right, and I think there's a whole new group of competitors that a lot of folks don't get to see. As far as, I mean, we're lucky at the farm show. They brought in the 4-1s, years ago, and it's gotten to the point where a lot of those folks have seen the Kevin Lindstroms come down from up in Wisconsin, and and all the the big names up that way, and from Missouri and out that way as well, and I think it's to a point where you could see, replacing some of, the super farm, but not just super farm though. I mean, who's to say it doesn't replace like a 2-wheel drive class somewhere or 4-wheel drives, or, what I mean? It could go right down the line as far as, as somebody looking for something new, like, Miles had talked about. I think that's, you could see that happening,
Right.
out this way.
Well, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see both them and maybe the light mods. They put on a great show last year. People liked them, so maybe they mix them in more this year, or mix up where they go. And the same with the 4-1s. But I guess the question that I think everybody keeps coming back to is, what does this do for Superfarm? Like, do you see more jump ship and run 4-1 now? Do you see them stay the same? What does this look like for both of those classes?
I hate it for the loyal super farm folks, because I see how the message kind of portrays itself to them. And if you read between the lines, in many instances, it may appear as this is its way out. A lot of that sort of discussion and buzz began, sadly enough, in the latter half of June, 1st of July. I started hearing discussion points of, hey, this is the last year for Super Farm. Super Farm's going. That has not been anything Grand National has said, in terms of the circuit. NTPA has messaged no way in that regard. And I don't think that's really truly a fair statement. I don't think it's something that really has occurred. And I don't necessarily think it has to occur. I think, as a person who announces tractor pulls, one of the most incredibly competitive classes, especially on the NTPA Grand National level, has been the Super Farm class over the course of the last 10 years. And again, when you look at it and you circle it, they've also been one of the most loyal. You can bank on the fact that X amount of them are going to come and participate. And with that, as the promoter or as the sanctioning body, having that comfort level to know gives you the assurance, okay, I'm going to have 18 of them. I'm going to go ahead and place them in here. And then if you have a super stock open or a super stock diesel or a light super class that has had some volatility and some breakage and some things like that, you can put them in there knowing full well that, hey, I've got my Super Farm 18 to count on. And I think for that sake, they have been sort of a very, very staple group. So I hate the thought process of just, hey, sorry, you're gone. And you force the hand to make all of those people who have been incredibly loyal to you to have to make a decision of, okay, what do I do now? Am I going to build a 4-1 and change the things I have to do to configure that? Do I move up to a 5-0 and run on a regional level? Do I just keep running Super Farm at select events? What's the question? And that's not a fun scenario to put anybody into. But I do understand that, like I said, if we just continue to sit on our hands, fellas, we're not going anywhere.
Right. We're
The
just
effort of full pull, the effort of the folks in social media. I watched the Motorsports Almanac podcast last night, and one of those discussion points the whole time is about marketing and media and how are we doing all this. And if we just keep sticking to the print ads like they talked about last night, and just keep posting flyers, and that's all the more you do for your marketing of your event's
Yeah.
never going to go anywhere. It's going to be incredibly complacent, and you're going to go nowhere. So if you're not adapting to the idea of having social media marketing, and you're not adapting to the idea of having some teaser reels and things like that, you're probably not reaching your populace that you want to, and you're probably not going to grow your event. And we have to accept that. And that's okay. You have a marketing budget to work with, and that's part of the discussion. But for this class perspective and how you handle all of that, Greg Randall and the guys at the NTPA have got to find ways to continue to keep their ball rolling as fast as they can get it while still keeping their hand on the ball. And so for this instance, 4-1 has got to be one of the ways they feel like the ball is going to roll.
Yeah, adding to your point, so last year 8 hooks for the super farms, and I think they averaged like 21 per event, which was a really good number for them over the last couple of years. But throwing it back in the promoters' hands as far as, okay, well, the promoters are going to pick in what classes they want, and unfortunately, if you guys there's not enough hooks out there, that's where I asked the question: is there too many classes to choose from? Is it Jeremy, you talked about you like having 14 classes to pick from, but like anything, there's always going to be a loser somewhere.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right, and I think we just have to wait and see, how the chips fall and what happens. But I am concerned. I'll be honest with you. I feel like Super Farm is going to be the odd man out here. I hope I'm wrong, but I think they will be.
But like you saw that happen in the super modified 4-wheel drives. They just kind of went. The promoters would get 4 or 5 trucks, and they're like, well, we're going to go with something else. And before you know it, there it was.
Right.
They got put to the side, and so that that's the part that I always thought that pulling should be modeled after drag racing. I know a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't go down them roads, but I think you should have your top classes, your unlimited, your diesel supers, stuff like that. And then the rest of your classes kind of fall into like a sportsman format, or like kind of like a regional, like they've done, more or less, and keep your Grand National where you can, I don't know, it's just something else to throw out there. But I don't know, when you tag something Grand National, then it just all of a sudden, turns into. Now my next question is, what happens? Like, is PPL, John and Christie, they going to add the limited pros to their Champions Tour? I mean, is that, we've seen that, like that happened with the mini rods. Well, shoot, it's been almost, 7-8 years ago already, but, is that going to make its way? Because they've got a very popular class with the Silver Series and the Western Series.
They do. They have a fairly robust season already for that class.
Right.
So I got one more follow-up with that, and then I have some comments on what you just asked. But Dan, help me remember, Jeremy, maybe you do. There isn't a minimum, I would say, in order to have Grand National class status, because Superstock Open a few years ago, I think they only had about four hooks or 6 hooks total or something like that, didn't they, for a points race?
I was thinking, you have to have at least 4, because remember at Bowling Green a few years back, they offered the light unlimited, and those were the only 2 hooks for the year, and they didn't offer a championship for that. So I think you have to have at least 4 hooks to have a championship.
Well, I was thinking a couple years ago, Superstock Open ran at Rockwell and at Bowling Green, and that was it.
Okay, and did they crown a champion?
I was thinking remember. So, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so that would be
that would
make sense.
That might have been
2 and 2
right after COVID, like that next year or something. And I could be wrong, but I feel like that was a really, really short number, like maybe 4 or 6 hooks. So if they have that number and they have it in their mind, then they obviously know, hey, in order to keep the status, this is what you've got to do. And maybe that's their way also of being able to take that decision out of their hands. If no promoters request it, they don't
Right.
get to that number very easily. They can say, hey guys, I'm sorry, but this is it. The downside is if that doesn't happen until February or March, you're
Right.
giving a guy a real short amount of time to get himself a tractor ready to go and run in a different class. So I hope there is some discussion point there. Now, from the Champions Tour, Western Series, Silver Series sort of discussion point and how that all works, I don't know that they need to change that, because I think what happens is as soon as they make that a Champions Tour class, they're going to take that away from really like loyal events that have been running it as a Silver Series event,
Right.
and you know, so like that will raise some questions. Like it may raise some questions for the Region 3 and the Region 2 guys from the NTPA's perspective of how's this going to work, especially for Region 3, where they've had, say, 14, 15, maybe tractors in their classes. And now, because 4 of them go run Grand National, if it meets their schedule and it works, well, they just took a third of their class away. And how's that going to work in terms of for your regional event now? You know, so there's got to be some calculation and how all that's going to work. And the other side of that is, and I get that, but if a Kevin Lindstrom signs up with 2 tractors to go and run and be out in the limited pro on the Grand National, and he's traditionally been a guy who's hit several Region 3 hooks, but he's in a hot points race, is he going to go hit those 3 hooks even if they aren't on top of his schedule? Probably not. He's probably going to keep his stuff together because he wants to win a Grand National title. So there's a lot that's coming,
Yeah.
guys,
Oh, yeah.
and I admire those that are making these decisions. I'm glad that I sell bulldozer parts, and I'm not the guy. You know, I'm glad I'm not the guy.
Amen. Yeah, I totally agree. And the coming weeks are going to be very interesting. Once we get through banquets and they start to release the schedules, I think we'll have our answers. Right now, yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how all of this falls. But hopefully, they will look into it and do what's best for, like you said, the growth of the organization and making things new and exciting, and everyone wins. I hope that's what I hope will happen. We'll just have to kind of see. And again, our names are Bennett, and we're not in it. We just talk about it. So.
I kind of wish there was this sort of revolving door sort of mentality that the NTPA and PPL and everybody required of the promoter. You can have
Amen.
3 of your previous 4, but you can't have all 4. You've got to pick a different one. And if we do that, then it allows for some change. It also allows for competitors to get to go new places, fans to get to see new things. And, for an event that's never had a super stock diesel 4x4 truck class, well, guess what? You got to come. And you got to be there. I didn't go to Chapel Hill last year. I went to Henry. But I can tell you, there were a lot of people in Tennessee who thought it was pretty awesome that the Superstock Diesel 4x4 invitation only class was there, and it gave those folks a chance to see that red clay be the surface to bring some really awesome guys that they've seen on TV and they've seen at the big shows be there. So I wish we could all kind of adopt that sort of mentality. And like I said, when those contracts go out and you have your promoter sitting right there, say, okay, you've never had mini rods. Well, you can have those mini rods this year because we're working on a revolving door and we have 8 locked in, and we've got to lock in 6 more new places, and that's what's going to happen. Now, from the pullers' perspective, they may absolutely hate that, because I think there are pullers that love the idea of knowing the track surface, knowing the travel, knowing the schedule, knowing all of those lay of the lands. They know where they're going to park. They've got all of that lined out. And so for their perspective, I'm sorry if you don't like it, but from the announcer's perspective and from a fan's perspective, I think it would be awesome for us to just have that revolving door.
I agree. I like to keep it fresh, keep it fresh and, something new and to that particular area. I love that idea. I think that's
like, I say this to you, Dan, because I see it in you and I hear it in your voice. I watched Lufkin the other night, and I can hear the energy in your voice, and I can hear the sort of intrigue and excitement. You did an interview with Cameron Neves that I saw, and it was like, not to say that you don't have energy and that you don't bring the same sort of philosophy to every one of them, but like just in the context of that, like that interview, I was like, man, he is on and he is excited and he's working this crowd, and this is great for the show. And ironically enough, shortly thereafter, Cameron made his pass. Donald came by and made an absolutely wicked pass, I believe, and won the class. But each of those sorts of things, like when you go, you've got some freshness and some newness to you because you're stepping into a realm of that sort of new possibility. And you'd been to Lufkin before, but the second time now. And like, I think those sorts of this summer, you've been to a lot of places you've never been.
Right.
And I think that's brought a new enthusiasm and an energy to you that, like that I felt at Farley. Don't get me wrong, it was a new, unique event, but I'd never been to Farley. So going there and just kind of experiencing all of that as a whole, that was a brand new experience for me, and I loved it.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, we'll touch on Lufkin here a little bit. And, Mother Nature kind of interfered with us on Saturday. Unfortunately, that event, a great fundraiser for Mission 22 that helps veterans with suicide. And their big thing that they do at Lufkin is they have everybody that wants to comes out on the track and does 22 push-ups. And the promoter will pay, for everybody that's out there, they'll give, I think it was like $22 per person, and they'll donate that to Mission 22. Well, there was more sponsors this year. I think they were up to $88 a person for everybody that would come out there and do the 22 push-ups. And unfortunately, it rained, so we weren't able to do that on Saturday night and raise some more money there for Mission 22. But what a great event! It's second year that I had the opportunity to be there, and there's already talk of them adding a track there and making things bigger. Crowds were great, unique because they've got the drag strip right there. It's kind of late. And with the with all the classes that they run, and down at the end of the drag strip, so they've got semis running on the drag strip and pulling there at night, and just a great event. And Outlaws, that was a way to end their season there with the champions. And congratulations, Don Nelson, two-wheel drive champion, Skylar Leaper and the limited pro diesel trucks, and Lacey Wager in the pro stock class. Boy, the 5.0 Pro Stocks with the Outlaws, I encourage anybody to go back and watch some of those hooks from Lufkin over the weekend, because both of those shows, the Pro Stocks put on outstanding show. 5.0 Pro Stocks. And
young man from Nebraska with a turban one too, right?
Yes, and that was getting to that right there, and that was neat because on Saturday night there they didn't get the modified class underway, but you saw him after he took off. He knew he just basically had to hook to the sled to get that championship. And then you saw a little fist bump there. Yeah, you did see that. So, yeah, that was pretty cool to see. So, and like you say, we, great event. They're looking to build things up for that. And just unfortunate that with Mission 22, they weren't able to, to do that fundraiser there. And we didn't get the chicken race either with Schultz out there. So that was, Mother Nature kind of interfered. But nonetheless, a great event. And, If you didn't look, I know we had the event going on with North Carolina State Fair, the Region 4 event going on. If you were watching that, I encourage you to go back and watch Lufkin, because, some of them outlaw shows, the modified class, like you say, always on the mark there. And the pro stocks really put on all classes last weekend just put on a great show. And hats off to everybody with the Outlaws, right to the top, Kurt Van Beek and, Kyle Petch and the whole group there, Ron Stone, everybody, hats off to them. A great event. And, they're looking to build that marquee event there at the end of the year. And, the weather couldn't be, more perfect, really. I mean, it was, high of about 85 to 90, but it wasn't overly hot. And just like you say, on Saturday there, we thought we were in the clear with the rain, but it just kind of came back on us and got us later in the night. But, if you're near that area, north of Houston, about a couple hours north of Houston, it's a great event. And, I think the Outlaws got a diamond there, and they're just starting to really shine that diamond, and it's showing here the last couple of years.
You mentioned North Carolina. We got to give our buddy PK a bit of a shout out, as there was a famous NASCAR driver who was doing some full pole promotion that just so happened to be at the event there, which was pretty neat to see Kyle Petty,
Was for sure. And he talked about how like that was the last dirt track race that was ever in NASCAR, and Richard Petty won there.
Yep.
Which I did not know. So a little bit of racing summaries and box scores and hundreds of rare stories from Kyle
Okay,
Petty.
thank you there, Mr. Jarrett.
I was waiting for the rare photos. That was coming. Wasn't that coming?
Hundreds of rare photos.
Hundreds of rare photos.
But yeah,
hey
no,
guys,
that was
before we want to dig any deeper, you talk about Texas, and certainly want to send our sympathies and love down to Ackerley.
Yes.
Thinking about Steve and Stan and the family, and obviously praying for them through this the loss of such an awesome man who kind of displays the trail for them and was still such a beacon of support. So hate the loss for the Blagrave family, but certainly understand that he's in a much better place now, and what a life he led.
Yeah, and a fellow announcer.
Yep.
Fellow announcer like ourselves, and yes, so we thoughts and prayers are with the Blagraves.
Well, and I guess Jeff Hurt had a pretty solid weekend in North Carolina too.
Yep.
Yeah, Jeff Hurt.
Kind of come to expect that.
And what's interesting about going back to that Kyle Petty story with Richard Petty winning there at Raleigh. Nowadays, back when they used to have the racetrack still there, around in the fairgrounds, and they have since moved all that. That's all gone, and basically they just have the front stretch left in front of the grandstand is all that's left of the track that's there. But yeah, it would if you look nowadays, it's like you wouldn't even know that there was any type of race in there. But yeah, that's kind of cool that part of NASCAR history there at the North Carolina State Fair. And yeah,
well, it looked like he had a good time. Like I didn't really get any sort of after reports, but while he was there talking, it seemed like he and his family were engaged and interested. And I saw some photographs of him with various vehicles. So I mean, it looks to me like they had a great time, and hats off and kudos to everybody that brought the Petties in, and that's a pretty neat deal for sure.
And I guess like the mini rods, right? Like the mini rods there. So maybe one day we can get Kyle in on a mini rod. That'd be kind of neat to see go down the track there. But yeah, so congratulations to all the winners, Region 4. So that pretty much that concludes NTPA regional competition. That concludes the outlaw season, and now we're pretty much full bore into the the silly season and banquet season and all that coming up.
Well, you got one to go this weekend.
Yeah, we got a couple big end of season events coming up. Diesels and Dark Corners this weekend down in White Plains, Georgia. Another venue that, if you've never been there, I strongly encourage you to go there, because it is something like you've drawn up. It's down between the trees and the red clay. It's just what an awesome venue. And this year they've kind of changed things up there and kind of limit the amount of entries that they had, because I think last year there was well over 200 entries for that event on a single track, and that makes for some long nights there. So they raised the entry fee this year to kind of lower the amount of entries. They still got I think 125, 130 entries. So
those lists are big.
I don't know what they had last year, but it's awfully big this year.
Yeah, so they kind of moved back the starting times there a little bit to kind of not run so late into the night. But yeah, it's going to be a great show, and I think the weather's supposed to be and this is one of those marquee events for these diesel truck competitors. You've got you've got Scheid, you've got Bowling Green for the super stock guys. I mean, this is just one of those events. Weeklands a couple of weeks ago is turning into one of those marquee events for the diesel truck pullers. So it's kind of cool to see that they're getting their own, marquee events there. And, of course, they give away the championship belt. How cool is that? I saw they were doing that at Raleigh last week. And Diesels and Dark Corners has done this the last couple of years. And that's what everybody goes for, that Saturday night, championship belt. So kind of a cool prize.
Absolutely. And to your point, I keep hearing about how fun it is to go down there and experience that venue. So I'll have to live vicariously through you this weekend as you make the trip down to Georgia.
Yeah, should be fun. Looking forward to it. And once again, on Full Pull Live this weekend, both Friday and Saturday. Pretty much that's the only thing going on this weekend besides college football and pro football, really. And, I know that'll be a great event once again. And, hats off to all the crew down there. Every year they make more and more improvements. And I see they've added some more grandstands this year. So, yeah, should be a great event. But, guys, we've got our first annual top 5 limited pro stock diesel truck 3.0 trucks driver rankings, and ranked on by all the competitors. I think there was about 17 that we had picked out, all your points winners, and we're given ballots, and everybody put down their top 5 who they think the best driver, just like we did in the spring with the Grand National classes and the overall the big classes there in pulling. But we wanted to do one here before Diesels and Dark Corners because there's 40 diesel trucks that are going to be running this weekend in the 3.0 class that you look at the list and it's just like any one of them can win it. But this was voted on by fellow competitors. And you guys ready to get see who we got for a top 5?
Absolutely. Let's
do it. So let's start off number 5, and we'll bring that one up here. Our number 5 ranked truck is going to be Drew Slayback in our 3.0 diesel truck power rankings. Drew runs, I think, a lot with the TNT circuit, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen the name down, and I know he's in Sevierville and in different places there. So congratulations, Drew Slayback will be our number 5 competitor here in our power ranking, or our driver rankings, I should say, not power rankings. Number 4 was interesting because we had a tie, and how it's determined is everybody gives their top 5. So if you were the number 1 in their rankings, you got 25 points and went down to 5 points. So 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. And then we just added up. Then who had the highest score was your, highest ranked 3.0 diesel truck. So we had in the 4th spot, we had a tie. Cody Bader and Landon Perkins tied for that number 4 spot in our power ranking. So congratulations to those two. And there's a couple guys that, if memory serves me right, they kind of pull everywhere and anywhere, don't they?
Yep, tough runners. And we saw Perkins at Glencoe. They got the win there at the Hansel Sullivan when we were there. So tough
number
runners.
2 in the PPL.
I was going to say run the Midwest region. I know I've seen them win, over the hill here at my hometown event. I know I've seen the Perkins brothers win down there, and Cody Bader, I believe, some of the OSTPA hooks, and so a good tie for number 4 there in our power rankings as we take a look here at number 3, and will be Skylar Leeper, the Outlaw champion. So Skylar, congratulations to Skylar. Also runs quite a bit with the PPL Western Series as well. So he was voted on number 3 in our 3.0 driver rankings. So congratulations to Skylar there. And we'll go on to our number 2. And we'll bring up Austin White, the gambler, Corey Baker's truck there. Austin White, of course, a couple-time champion on the PPL Midwest Regional Circuit with the potent gambler truck doing the driving. So he was voted number 2 in our power rankings there. And, you talk about Austin White, and there's a guy that's won a bunch.
Absolutely.
And then our final number 1 here, our number 1 driver ranked 3.0 diesel truck competitor comes in, and it's going to be voted as Adam Kincaid, our number 1 driver. And, well, we were talking about it earlier. We're kind of coming up with trying to find a picture of Adam, but Adam drives everything. So
Right.
what do you pick for what he drove? I mean, you name it, he's driven it, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was one of them. He drove at Shy, that Dodge, and then he also drove the high horsepower Dodge as well. And um, he's good. You go back to the Pro Stock 4x4 days with the naturally aspirated. He was very tough there, and a guy who can read a track and study it out and isn't afraid to make a change or do something off the grid just a little bit, and it makes a big difference. So I would like to have sat and tallied some of those votes just so I know how everything was there. There's a gentleman who was pretty dominant at Scheid who I would have thought might have been in there, but I guess I didn't study his entire summer off to be able to tell you where he should have fallen either. So
Well, and I don't know. I'm a bit surprised by the list myself. I feel like maybe there are some outliers that are waiting in the wings, kind of sleepers. Like I feel like maybe Ostrader needs to be in the conversation. I feel like Bo Curry had a heck of a year on the TNT side of things. Amanda Scott deserves to be in that mention as well. So yeah, and Josh Land too. Like I would have put him in there as well. So be interested to see what they do in Diesels and Dark Corners, as well. But yeah, good list, and
Land's
good
in the
luck.
big class down there.
Yeah.
Okay, so he put the bars on. He's going to run the big one. Okay.
Yeah, he's in the bar tire for, I think, Pro Stock as well, Pro Stock diesel truck and the Super Stock. So he's
Good
gonna.
for him.
He's in the super class.
Yeah, he's gonna.
So he's going to the big show.
He's running everything. I think he's running everything but a 2.6 down there. And
I love that truck with the bar tires on it. I think it looks really swell. It's really neat.
And hey, Dano, did I see Kurt Hazley was doing the driving of CW Cartmail's truck down there?
Yes, I think he drove it at Weaklands too as well. I think he was driving something up there. I know I'd seen Kurt's name in the list there in the 3.0 truck. So yeah, I think there's a guy that call for a hired gun, right?
That's a heck of a call. Hey, I need a fill in. Can you take it? Well, yeah, no problem.
Got it.
But as you mentioned, Jeremy, there was a couple of the names you mentioned there, and I know I saw they were in the top 10. As far as the points were pretty tight. I mean, when you look down through and everybody kind of had, it was pretty interesting how everybody voted, and it was pretty tight there as far as. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out here this weekend, and but like I say,
not taking anything away from the names on that list. I want to reiterate that those trucks all warrant it. Adam Kincaid, obviously at the top, has been somebody who is just tough as you get, and Austin White, and the Gambler truck are tough as you could get as well. So I love that class. I've started to love that class even more. I'll be honest with you, there were some time frame there where I dreaded announcing that class because everybody came out with either a 1996, a 97, a 98, or a 99 Dodge Ram.
Yeah, it was only a Dodge.
Yes.
I remember there being some years at Scheid where I was like, and here with the 75th Dodge Ram,
yellow.
But now we've got some variety, and we've got some guys putting some square body Chevys like Adam Hallion's got Wrecker now, and Landon's got that F-250, and then Adam Kincaid brings a old style Dodge body out, which makes it, you get a little bit more excitement there, and you can get a little bit rejuvenated for it, as opposed to just watching another 1996 Dodge Ram come to the line. So I enjoyed getting to watch that class at Scheid. And I did the television broadcast for Heritage Weekend in Lanesville and enjoyed that as well. So I will be tuning in for Diesel and Dark Corners while I'm at softball tourney this weekend, and hopefully get to enjoy that as we've got just one more softball tournament to wrap up our fall ball season.
And one thing I noticed, guys, with these diesel truck competitors, they've gotten to know the microphone. Where years ago you'd stick the microphone in their face and they're like, yes, no, but they have gotten to the point where they're good on the mic, and we talk about how big Diesels and Dark Corners is. The Gambler truck, Corey Baker's truck, was last week down in Lufkin trying some different things. He had Skylar Leeper doing the driving of the truck and trying some different things. They were test and tuning down there. Down to Texas to test and tune for Georgia. So that'll be interesting to see how that'll all work out here this weekend. Now, Skylar's not going to be able to make it down there with his own truck. So he had another commitment, but it'll be interesting how that all works out here this weekend. So a tough running truck from right up Salem, Indiana.
Absolutely.
Hey, I was wondering about that too, though. I think I saw on Facebook last week where the Lees had listed their farm truck, right, for sale, as they're getting ready to put the third one together to go run big super stock diesel. And I hate seeing them sell that truck, because that's what I think so much about the Lee family and what's synonymous with them really kind of going. But hey,
Yep.
you want to buy a truck?
Yes.
that's really, really good.
Now rumor has it, you know how rumors go. Rumor has it that somebody was looking to buy a spot to get into Diesels and Dark Corners and paid some pretty big scooch to get into the field down there. So we'll leave it at that. But there was somebody didn't make the deadline, and now there's only coveted spots. So now we're seeing if somebody really wants to go, they're
paying for it.
Yes, they're paying to get in there. So
sure,
fair enough.
So we'll see how that, of course, goes here this weekend. Good luck to everybody heading down there. Safe travels, and we'll see how our driver ranking. We'll see how the competitors do here this weekend. Other than that, that's pretty much it for this week, guys. Anything else to add?
No, it sure would be great to be able to jump on Pulling Reference and find out what year they had only 4 hooks in the diesel super class right now.
Now let me just tell you. Let me tell you that remember last week when we had this conversation, I said I got a meeting here. I got my little Post-it note here, October 28th. So I'm hoping by Halloween weekend, that's 1 week. So when we talk next week, I'm hoping we are going to have actually they just sent me the draft here of all the updates. So I've got to go through that and see. So we're getting close. I have that feeling, but I'm not going to.
Hey, if you need a beta tester.
Yep, there we go.
I'm your guy.
All right. There we go. I'll send it through. All right, guys.
All right,
awesome.
Thanks for everything, guys. As always, please send your suggestions and all the things to us. We love the messages. We appreciate you dialing in with us every week, and it's a pleasure being here with you as always.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see everybody in Georgia this weekend. Take care.
Be safe, folks.